Now, from the studios of Into Tomorrow in Miami, this is ITTV.
Almost two-thirds of the people in the U.S. are stressed by the news. Our next guest created an interactive news and social media platform designed to mitigate the climate of misinformation. It's about time, and we're delighted to have the founder and CEO of a company called Etha, Nicole Ogloza. Nicole, welcome Into Tomorrow from a trade show in Toronto. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for having me, Dave. Super excited to be here.
Well, we're super excited to have you, especially with what I mentioned in your introduction. I think that got a lot of people's attention, certainly with our audience. It's like, yeah, somebody help us, please, with all the misinformation and just being stressed and so forth. So tell me a little bit about the company Etha, E-T-H-A. Does it mean something? How did it come about? You're a founder of it, so let us know about Etha.
Yeah, sure. So I started the company about 1.5 years ago. We've grown to a 28-person team. Currently, we're still in a little bit of pre-investment stage, but basically what we're working on is a social news media that is using artificial intelligence to help mitigate with misinformation, as you mentioned, but also political polarization. I know a lot of people in the U.S. are having a lot of hard times communicating with one another because everything has turned political.
Yeah.
So, I've turned it into, this application that helps solve for and account for extreme transparency and to news media today. And the way that I've figured this out, I've had my background in, working with systems at Warner Bros. Entertainment. There I got to see how the media worked. I also worked on government and education implementations for larger systems of universities. So I'd say through this experience, I really got the handle of technology as well as media to compile something of this type of idea. And basically right now on the application, we do have a website. So it's etha.one, not .com. And then we also do have our app on Google and Apple as well, with about 15,000 users in the last 3 months. So a lot of people to talk to about there that do care about this mission.
Nice.
And, we really want to see and restore not only political polarization, but misinformation. And, we found a way and to show a report card of actual politicians and news media to hold them accountable. So people can actually up and down vote them almost like in a Tinder-like format where, to see what they're saying and, argue against what they're saying as opposed to people that are talking in the comments and chats.
I love that concept. Wouldn't it be great to be able to take a politician or all the politicians and swipe left or right? Like you say, kind of like a Tinder or a Match kind of a scenario. It's like, I'm not impressed with you. Be gone with you. I think that's called term limits. So we need to work on that anyway. But see, there becomes a kind of another issue. I've been calling social media for the last several years anti-social media, and it brings up the point that you work on. So I'm wondering, how is Etha different from the anti-social media and, for that matter, news outlets that are out and about?
Yeah, so with news outlets, obviously, they're the ones spinning things out of control, whether their stories are completely falsified or just narrated beyond, recognizable belief. So what we're actually doing is that we're not just a social or news media. We're using that as a front to create a new system for our government. This is a government 2.0 platform that helps people actually talk through issues in their communities and actually solve and account for some of those issues that need to be escalated right away. So for instance, we're having Stacey Abrams on a call and her political opponent, Brian Kemp, to kind of go through issues with their own communities and see how we could translate that into a new system. But the way that we're different is that we are actually using AI and people, not like just big, deep tech or not just completely Republican. We have no political ties to anyone, especially in, Republican or Democrat states. We're completely independent. And our AI, what it will actually do is figure out the first time something has ever been mentioned on the web and help stop like prankster bloggers that really do get all of these things out of control in the media.
Wow.
So the way that these things happen is like, let's say someone just said a celebrity just died, right? And it came from someone at 4 a.m. on a blog somewhere. This application will actually show like, hey, do you really want to read this because it came from someone that is not a verified source in some very weird like website? and then it'll actually show the first time it's been mentioned and track all of the people that have really covered a story around it, to showcase that, hey, this is a source of actual false information. That way, if you cleanse the media with the way that they do it currently, you have to kind of mirror the way that the media is actually working. And all of it is around political cycles, right? So that's the way that we're going to start, is through political cycles. Kind of think of this as the Amazon, but for media, right? We integrate with media houses, political campaign consultancies and agencies, and all of these other areas that might benefit from this data to help transform the way that breaking news is released, especially in a truthful and transparent manner.
And I would think that political groups, campaigns especially, would want to work with you very much because they want their truth out. The fact that it's kind of a debating issue with their opponent, perhaps, or whatever the case. Granted, everybody doesn't agree, but they want to get their points across accurately. Whether you agree with them or not, at least you know that's what's happening. It's not somebody else's opinion who's trying to sway you, like Facebook, or Twitter or Instagram or Google, and that's a big problem for a lot of us. It's like we want to make up our own minds, but it's hard to do that when you're bombarded with false information all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and that's the whole point of what we're trying to do. And then, in the next 3 years, we'll be looking at a whole new media ecosystem when our AI does go live for its first time. Obviously, we have to test it out quite a bit before it gets there, but this is something that we are diligently working on, and a lot of this will be able to transform politicians, media, everyone else involved. Even our technology can be applied to any other areas like sports or healthcare that has and suffers from all this misinformation, to even help doctors find and conclude what these different opinions and thoughts really are to solve problems. Instead of being, all this hostility that we see on Twitter or Facebook, it's because there's a lot of broken links and chains that are really involved with one another here. So, these are some of the things that and looking at the data, I have no political views, and everyone seems to be misinformed. Even the politicians themselves, this is how skewed the data is across the entire media ecosystem. Well,
I can even see just at your website at etha.one, which is O-N-E, not the number one, so ETHA.ONE, where you talk about let's fix the system. And you have a picture of both former President Trump and current President Biden. So you're being equally fair, I think, because they're both showing on your app in this case. And the fact that you've done your homework, Nicole. Obviously, you and your team have done a lot of work to prepare this, and that you're using AI, which is certainly also helping to feed through all the muck, if you will, all the nonsense, all the false information, is got to be something very unique. And the AI has been helping you, I'm guessing, considerably.
Yes. So the first part of the AI that is actually being released in about 2 or 3 weeks, it actually shows Fox, CNN, and compares all these media houses to one another. And all of them, you could actually see the level and percentage of bias in each article. Wow. So this is the first step in actually showcasing the level of bias. So that way people at least go into it knowing that, hey, this might be more to the right or more to the left, across all media articles that are still mentioning that one particular, subject or topic that politician has talked about. So that way you can see across the board how many times it's been mentioned and then where it also came from originally.
And I think that's terrific that one of the initial things you're doing is comparing some of these media outlets, because let's say, for example, if you're a big CNN fan and then you see these comparisons, perhaps you're going to find out that, well, I shouldn't believe everything they say, just like you shouldn't believe everything anyone says for that matter. Do your own homework, but it seems like you're helping us do the homework, or doing it for us in some cases.
It is exactly like that, especially when it comes to journalists and people in the media. They're the ones that are most deeply affected. Like if you work for a larger company like Fox or CNN, even if you are a very high end or like a journalist with a lot of integrity, some of those truthful stories don't actually make it out alive because they're looking for articles that have just numbers that they could chase for those headlines.
Yeah.
And obviously this is not a good thing. And journalists are also the ones that are trying to find those better stories, but always get tricked on these smaller end blogs. So, these two things together is a very powerful tool for our journalists as well. So we could provide them transparency that they need to create stories, hold them accountable for how they're actually writing them, but also help them. You know, like a lot of the things that we've discovered, you have to understand the process behind the whole media aspect, right? And how it works and why some of those chains of communications are broken. You know, another element to all of this is people just generally don't understand how the media works, and a lot of it is to navigate the internet. And this is something that we also want to turn into an educational tool in the future. Is like, hey, if you don't know how to read English, we could also give it to you in text or in audio or in video format, so that way other people can enjoy the same exact story that's being communicated to them here.
Wow, that's terrific. And I think when you talk about journalists and hopefully most of them have a concern for, you know, ethics and integrity and that sort of thing. But journalists over the many, many years are supposed to vet any story. You know, you don't take one source and say, oh, this just in, this happened, unless you know that it happened or you know they said it or whatever the case. And of course, since blogs, a lot of people say, oh yeah, we're vetting through a lot of blogs. Well, that doesn't necessarily mean it's accurate either. Because again, blogs are just that, you know, people uttering opinions in many cases. So you really got to do more homework and more vetting. It seems to me also, Nicole, that the Etha app can probably lead discussions amongst your friends, whether you agree with them or not, but at least bring up things. And maybe within the app, do you have the ability to have discussions or kind of, you know, share opinion?
Yeah, so right now we're still in the early stages for that, but we are well on our way to develop that format and feature. But we do have this other idea that is coming down the pipeline as well, and it's called crowdsourcing. So this actually takes our AI from about 95% accuracy all the way to 100, being able to tell where there's terrorist attacks or gun attacks for like school children, even down to the biggest lies out there. We can actually localize that AI also using people. So for instance, if you go to maybe a rally or something like this behind me, and you see your favorite or least favorite politician say something, you'll be able to see Fox and CNN's snippets of what they're actually saying. But then also the people that have attended the event, all of them can upload their own end-to-end video from multiple different angles and perspectives saying like, hey, this event actually exists, right? So that's something that will also help clarify like, hey, this isn't an old video that Fox or CNN has used for this type of a clip. This is actually happening in real time right now, which sometimes does not occur or happen in the media.
Yeah, unfortunately, it probably frequently doesn't happen in the media because they have a bias, a slant, whatever the case might be, and that's what you're getting if you're just watching them. So, man, I can't wait to see these side-by-side things and see what comes of those, to be able to say, aha, I knew it. That's not accurate at all. Or how media will tend to cut the end of someone's statement before they end the statement. You know, so it's not a complete picture, and that's difficult too. Again, slanted, bias, whatever the case. So I'm certainly getting the Etha for ethics part and how you are using that. So Nicole Ogloza, the founder and CEO of Etha, ETHA.ONE, Etha.one. Thanks so much for being with us. Make sure you stay in touch and let us know when the app is available, when everything's up and running. We'll share that with our audience as well and suggest that folks download it and start taking advantage of how you're helping us sort through all the nonsense sometimes. Sure
thing. Yeah, the app is actually live on both Google and Apple right now.
Excellent.
So, you know, anyone that is listening to this show, even yourself, Dave, what we'd like from our audience is to actually talk to everyone. You know, we're trying to fix the system here, and everyone's opinion does count for this platform in order to build it better for the future. So
well, I got to share with you, I have to share with you, Nicole, folks in our control room are holding up your app. They've already downloaded it. And there's Chris going, I got it. Look. And so you're impressing our folks. So I know everybody listening is going to say, got to check it out. So you're going to look for ETHA, right? Etha in your app store and download that app. And you can visit them online at Etha.one. Nicole, you're a delight to chat with. We look forward to getting you back again sometime soon. And good luck to you. Looking forward to seeing how you can help us.
Thank you so much, Dave. Have a good one.
You too. It's our pleasure. Wow, that's awesome. So ETHA, Etha.1, O-N-E, spelled out, not just the number 1, Etha.1. And of course, we'll get you there when you visit us at intotomorrow.com. As we do with all of our guests, stay tuned. There's much more to come as we bring you further into tomorrow, right here on the Advanced Media Network.